Hi, everybody. It's Terry, crafty book nerd. Glad you're here today as I get ready to discuss the books I read in January of 2023. I can't believe January's already gone and February's here, but it is. And the groundhog says we're going to have 6 more weeks of winter. Hmm, I'm not looking forward to that, but since I'm retired, I do look forward to 6 more weeks of reading. That's what I call it. So I like to stay inside where it's warm by the fire with a book, my favorite hot drink, and read the day away. I hope you get to get some reading in too. So, let's talk about what I read for the month of January. The first few books I'm going to discuss, I do not have a physical copy of. I either checked them out from the library or read them on my Kindle. So I will be putting a photo of the book cover right up here when I talk about those books. The first book that I read that was either from the library or a Kindle book was The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. I was interested in this book because I had also read In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by her, and it was really good, a really good thriller. And so I thought I would check this one out. One thing to note when you get this book and you open it up to begin reading it, there is a list of trigger warnings. I really want to urge you to read those, and if you think some of those things are going to bother you, then this is probably not the book for you. This book is very raw, it's very emotional. The writing makes you feel like you are there with the characters and you're experiencing what they experienced. It's very dark, it's very twisty, so it may not be for you, but I enjoyed it and gave it 4 stars. It's a story about Shay, and when Shay was younger, she got into some things that weren't particularly healthy for her physically and mentally, and she left that world behind. At least she thought she had left that world behind. 8 years passed, and there's an event that happens that makes her begin to question things that she went through during that time of her life. And she wants answers. And so she goes back to the town where it all began, and she wants to expose a group of people and what they are doing to young girls in that town. Like I said, the writing made me feel like I was actually there. Um, it was just, it was a difficult read, but it was good. So if you like thrillers, I definitely suggest you pick this one up. The next book I read was the second book, the sequel to Vicious, called Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. This is her first adult book, and it was my book club book. We actually read the first one earlier, or should I say later, in 2022, and we decided that this one, Vicious, would be our first read for our book club in January of 2023, and it did not disappoint. It continues the story of Eli and Victor and what's going on with them. Probably focusing a little bit more on Victor and some problems that he's had now that he's been brought back to life several times and the powers that he has. We also do get the backstory of Eli, which gives us a little bit um, more sense of what happened to him to make him be the kind of person that he is. And so the struggle between those two main characters continues. And of course, we're still um, learning about Sydney and what's going on with her. And then there are also several new characters brought into the story and the powers that they have and how all those powers play into the whole story with Eli and Victor. I really enjoyed it a lot. I actually, like I said, I enjoyed it more than the first book, and I did give this one 5 stars. Also, there is a rumor that there could be a third book in this series. And I hope so, because there were a lot of unanswered questions in my mind when I finished the second one. And I'd really like to know more about some of the new characters and what they're going to mean to the whole dynamic of the story. So I'll be anxious to hear about that third book. I do have a couple quotes for you that I want to share about this book that might make you interested in reading them. Perhaps she was glass, but glass is only brittle until it breaks. Then it's sharp. Every end is a new beginning. So if you read this one, let me know your thoughts. The next book I read was also a sequel, and that book was The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. The first book in this series was the Once Upon a Broken Heart. The main reason I picked this series up is because Stephanie Garber wrote Caraval, which is probably one of my all-time fantasy series. I absolutely love that whole series, and so I thought, you know what, this has got to be good, and it was, and it did not disappoint. In this sequel, we continue to follow Evangeline and the Prince of Hearts and what is going on with them. There is a new curse that has come into play. Evangeline is not trusting the Prince of Hearts. He has betrayed her, and she just doesn't know what she needs to do to find her fairy tale ending, her happily ever after. That's all she wants. That's all she wants. But it's not proving to be so easy for her to do that. Um, it's a story about love and curses, and magic, lots of magic. I really enjoyed the writing of this book. The world building was really good. I felt like I was there. I could almost picture what the characters were wearing and what they looked like, because of the descriptions were so vivid in my mind. So Evangeline has to break this curse, and she's always trusted her heart, but now she's just not so sure she can continue to do that. And when this book ended, I knew there was going to be a third book, and I was right. And that book actually comes out in September of 2023, and it is called A Curse for True Love. And I can't wait to pick it up because I know it's going to be good, and I'm going to really enjoy it. I gave The Ballad of Never After 4 stars. And I have 4 quotes from this book I want to read to you because I think this will make you want to read the book too. So here they are. Sorry about the shaking of the computer screen there. I got a little excited. She tried not to move, hoping he wouldn't be able to tell that she had changed the beat of her heart as they lay in that bed, chest pressed close together, legs tangled. Everything between them felt as fragile as a raindrop that would cease to exist when it touched the ground. But the hollow also felt like the sort of place where raindrops never touch the ground. Oh, that gives me chill bumps. She believed that everyone's life was like a story with an ending that was not yet written, and therefore everyone's future held infinite possibilities. He casually slid into the seat beside her, turned to her with a wolfish grin. It was a smile like a fairy tale, part villain, part hero, part impossible ever after. And finally, dreams were like fairy tales, a little bit true and not entirely trustworthy. So if you haven't read this series, it's another great one to add to your TBR. I hope you enjoy it. The next books I want to talk about are all books that I currently have in my stash. Um, I either purchased them on Book Outlet or at a used bookstore or pick them up somewhere else. And so I have those to share with you. The first one I want to share is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. This book met one of my Pop Sugar of 2023 challenges, and that challenge was to read a book that was written in the decade you were born. This book was written in 1969, and I was born in 1961. Do the math, and you'll know how old I am. um, I'd always heard about this book, and I just happened to find it in a used bookstore, and I thought, you know what? It's time for me to read that book, and I am so glad that I did. Such a treasure. Maya wrote this book when she was 41 years old, and her writing is just beautiful. I mean, I had heard some of her poetry and things before, but this was just such a good story of her life and her childhood growing up as a black girl in the 1930s and 40s. And the things that she had to endure were just mind blowing to me. Really, really mind blowing. And it gave me a sense of what life was like during that time, especially for black people. And it gave me a sense into Maya's life and the things that she went through and the barriers that she overcame to become the person that she was. Such a fantastic lady. I wish I would have gotten to meet her in person. Would love to have had a conversation with her. Just such a good book. Um, if you've not read it, it's a treasure. You need to read it. I have a couple quotes from this book I'd like to share with you. From Maya. One is if you're for the right thing, you do it without thinking. Mm. Excuse the coughing. Went to the walk-in yesterday and I've had strep throat. Got some shots and I'm feeling so much better though. Thank you for urgent care. The next quote says, "Life is going to give you just what you put into it. Put your whole heart in it and everything you do and pray, and then you can wait." And the last one, "Hoping for the best, prepared for the worst, and unsurprised by anything in between." I gave this book 5 stars. It was good. The next book I have is called Can't Look Away by Carola Lovering. And this meets the challenge of reading one book a month by from a friend that recommends it to me. And my friend Susan recommended this book. And so this is my first book for that challenge that I challenged myself to read 12 recommendations from 12 different friends. And she said I would enjoy it. And I think Susan knows my reading taste because I did enjoy Susan. I did enjoy it. I did give it 4 stars. It's very suspenseful, hard to put down. It's a story about Molly and Jake. Molly wanted to be a writer. Jake was in a band. They were young. They were in love. They had the whole world ahead of them. And something happens in their relationship, and they both move on. And it's now 10 years later. Molly is married to Hunter, and she has a daughter. And then this lady enters Molly's life, and her name is Sabrina. And when Sabrina enters Molly's life, I knew there was something about Sabrina. And I was right. Things start to take a turn and things start to get interesting. And there are some twists and turns and surprises. Sabrina has secrets, and we even find out that Molly has some secrets of her own. And so Molly begins to question everything about who she is, how she got to where she was, and she began to wonder, do you ever get over your first love? Hmm. And I have a quote from this book somewhere. I think I just pulled it out. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Sorry about that, guys. Here's my quote from this one. "With Jake by my side, we'd be an invincible team. We'd fill the void of unconditional love in each other and funnel it down to our children. We'd create the family neither of us ever had." Thanks, Susan, for the recommendation. It was a good one. My next book that I read was for my book of the month that I just joined this year, and I'm glad I did. And the book that I picked for my book of the month is All the Dangerous Things by Stacy Willingham. All the Dangerous Things by Stacy Willingham. So this was my book of the month book, and I said that I wanted to make sure that I read the book of the month. I didn't want to just let all these books pile up and not read them. I want to read them in the month that I got them. And so far, I'm 1 for 1, so that's good. So this is a psychological thriller um, about a young woman who has a problem with sleepwalking. And we go back and forth between three major threads in this book. We have the main story that's happening in the present. We have a past narrative where the main character, whose name has escaped me, follows her. Isabella is her name. I'm sorry. Isabella. Follow with the story of Isabella and what happened in her childhood as she was sleepwalking and growing up with her sisters and her parents. And then we have the third thread of Isabella marrying Ben and what happens in that part of her life and how sleepwalking comes into play. It was kind of slow at first and then it picked up. I did feel that it kind of wrapped things up a little too neatly, a little too quickly. So that was probably why I only gave it a 4 star instead of a 5. I just felt like it just wrapped up too easy for me. But Isabella questions things that happened to her in her childhood, and we see how it affects her life and makes you think about sleepwalking. I actually did a little bit of research on sleepwalking. I know that when I was younger, I had some bouts of sleepwalking. My mom would find me in the hall or in a closet. Thank goodness I never got outside, but that does happen to some people. But eventually, I guess I did grow out of it, so that's a good thing. So it didn't disappoint. It was good, but not quite as good as I thought it would be. So that was All the Dangerous Things. So pick that one up if you're looking for something suspenseful. And my quote for this one is because that's the thing with the audience, the thing I learned long ago. They don't want to get too uncomfortable. They don't want to actually live through what I've lived through every ugly moment. They just want a taste. The next one I read was a really quick read, and I kind of picked it up like 2 days before the end of the month, and I knew that I could read it quickly. And I have a great nephew, and he's 10 years old, and his whole school is doing read a book together. And the book that they're reading is called The One and Only Ivan, and this met the pop culture, pop sugar challenge for a book with a pet as a character. And I guess you could kind of consider Ivan as a pet. It is based on a true story of a gorilla whose name was Ivan, and that's what the book is based on. And it was very sweet about Ivan and Ruby, his elephant friend that he meets. And the story's told in Ivan's voice. The chapters are short. It's definitely a middle grade read. You almost forget that you're reading about animals. Kind of, they have characteristics and personalities of people that you might know. So I really enjoyed that. I'm anxious for when my nephew finishes it and we can have some conversations about this book. And I may revisit it and let you know some of his thoughts about the book coming from a 10-year-old, because that will definitely be different than coming from a 61-year-old. But anyway, it was a fun read and I did enjoy it. It was also the Newbery Medal winner. And I do have a quote from it that I thought was really cute. I read it to my husband today, but he didn't think it was too funny. It says, "They think I'm too old to cause trouble. Huh. Old age is just a powerful disguise." Yeah. Oh, I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed it. And last but not least, I'm going to talk about my favorite book that I read for the month. I probably should have done a separate video just on this book, so I'll try to keep it brief, not too long. Um, and that book is dun da da da. Are we ready? Are we ready? Let me tell you first who it's by. It's by Jodi Picoult and Jennifer Finley Bowen. It's a book that I meant to read in 2022, but ran out of time, and so I made it my first read for 2023, and it's probably going to be in my top 10 for 2023 because it was that good for me. And that book is Mad Honey. And I'm so glad I bought this book because it's definitely a keeper or someone I'll pass to a friend. Um, this book is told from three different points of view. It's told from the point of view of Olivia, who is a mother, Asher, a teenage boy, and Lily. And it's their story. There are some things I can't tell you about this book because if I told you about it, it would really give the whole story away. It's a book about keeping secrets and how some secrets can be harmful if they come out in the open, so maybe they're better kept a secret and not told. Jodi Picoult, I love her books. She has a way of taking a topic that you think you know about, that you think, yeah, it's black and white. It's either this or it's that. That's where I stand. That's it. That's my stance on that particular issue. But she takes it and she gives you information and she does her research, and the information she gives you in your books is factual. Because I go back and I read about some of the stuff that she talks about, and it is factual information in her books. She does her research. And you begin to think differently about certain types of people, about feelings of people, and it just can change your whole perspective. It did for me. It made me really think, and all of her books have done that for me, and I think that's why I like it so much. It's about new beginnings. There are lots of surprises in this book. There were times where I would read it and then I'd be like, wait a minute, what just happened? And I had to go back a few pages because I was like, no. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I did not see that coming. So Asher's on trial, and the story plays out with him being on trial and what happens to him and someone trying to help him and trying to get the truth out of what really happened so that he doesn't have to go to jail for a crime that I don't think he committed. And I think that you'd probably feel the same once you read more of the book. It is about a sensitive topic. I will let you know that up front. But gosh, y'all, it was good. It was really good. And I had a quote from it. It was actually the quote that I read to you at the beginning of one of my last videos, the one where I was showing my reading journal and I was putting stuff in. And what I do is I like to type the quotes up, and I will include those in my reading journal for the books I read in January. And here's the quote. How similar does someone have to be to you before you remember to see them first as a human? A human. So much going on in the world today that this just really touches my heart and makes me know that we are all God's children and we are to love everybody, even if they're different than us, even if we don't agree with them. We don't have to hate. We don't have to have hate in our hearts toward those people. We should have love toward those people. Anyway, as you can see, it was an emotional read for me, and I did enjoy it very much, and love to hear your thoughts if you read it. So check it out. So that's the end of the books I read for January. I got 2 more videos coming up. I will be showing you how I record all this in our reading junk journal, how I record my January reads, and then I'll also be doing another video about what I plan to read in February. So I hope you'll join me for those. And if you have not subscribed to my channel, I hope you will. I hope you'll like my video, share it with your friends who are readers. And if you have read any of these books, oh, please give me your comments. I love to discuss books with anybody that will discuss books with me. I can get going on some books. So let me know. And thanks for being here again. And God bless you and have a great day.